The G85 autofocus is kind of bad, and like a wolf it likes to hunt, and in the process it wobbles like jello. And a number of you have reached out to me because of your hesitation in buying the G85, the G7, the GX85, the GX9 because of its video autofocus performance. But today I'll give you 3 workarounds that I use, and you could possibly use this for other cameras as well. Starting with a quick history lesson, good video autofocus hasn't been around for very long, and in fact, Hollywood doesn't even use video autofocus to this day. And while it's becoming more and more common, it doesn't mean we should take for granted just how far technology has come. Also, there's only 2 companies that I trust with video autofocus right now, and that's Canon and Sony. But the main point here is that there's so many good video cameras out there that don't have good video autofocus. But more importantly, there's no perfect camera. Choose a camera with good autofocus, maybe sacrifice on ergonomics, image quality, or lens selection, so there's always a compromise. For the most part, pick a camera and a camera system that you vibe with, learn how to use it, learn its limitations, and learn to work around it. Let's get started. Number 1, always pre-focus. I don't really know what it's called, but it's when you stick your camera into manual focus and you drag the focusing square to your subject, which makes the camera use autofocus. The reason I do this is because the camera can actually focus faster than I can, especially if I'm using a focus by wire lens. And more importantly, the camera won't shift focus when I'm rolling because it's already in manual focus. Now I use this for YouTube, I use this for interviews, and I just make sure that the depth of field is long enough so I don't need to rack focus if the subject happens to move. Number 2, keep your distance. No, this doesn't mean you have to stay away from your subject. All it means is that once you've set focus, you maintain that same distance with your subject so that when they move, you move. This can be used anytime your subject is moving, whether you're handheld or preferably with a gimbal. Basically, if they're moving, try and match your steps with theirs. Number 3, shooting out of focus. There's a popular effect where the camera pushes in and the subject is in focus the whole time. That's not the only way to show your subject. There's so many other ways. One of my favorite one is if the subject is out of focus and it comes into focus as the camera pushes in. This is a limitation in my camera, but here's where I take that limitation, turn it on its head, and make something good out of it. Because as a creative, you gotta be more creative than the problem. Now I know I said 3 ways I work around this, but I couldn't help myself. Here's a 4th one. Number 4 is stopping down. Stopping down is fancy camera speak for having a smaller aperture, or having a higher f-stop number, or having a longer depth of field. Now when you do this, you lose that blurry background, but what you get is clarity over your whole shot, which means it doesn't matter if your subject moves, they're still gonna be in focus. Some of the pretty shots I've seen on film from one of my favorite directors, Wes Anderson, is where everything is in focus because he's so fluent in cinematic language. Color, composition, camera movement, camera angles, editing, soundtrack, lighting. He doesn't need a blurry background to convey his message in the best possible way. And that doesn't mean you should never shoot with a shallow depth of field, but it's something to think about. If you're always using that as a crutch, you're missing out on all these other things. It's kind of like you're only using a blaster when you've also got a lightsaber and the force. That doesn't make sense. That's like 3 things. It's kind of like you're at this massive buffet and you're only taking the salad, which, I mean, it's nice, but there's just so much more. And I promise once you become more fluent in cinematic language, using that blurry background just kind of fades like a blurry background. So that's it. That's 4 ways that I work on the autofocus of my cameras. No, it's not perfect, but as with anything in life, you just work with what you've got and you just do your best. So the G85 autofocus is kind of bad, but that doesn't mean your videos have to be.